Hi, folks. Um, this video is going to function as the week 3 overview for English 2331, the online section for fall of 2025. I had some good feedback, positive feedback on my introductory video for last week, so I thought I would continue, right? um, to kind of give you some context and so forth for what's coming up. Um, Rather than the text, I'll share my screen here. Just a moment. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. All right. So the text for this week, if we go to, and I've got it on student preview. So what I'm looking at is what you all should be able to see. So if we look uh week 3, um, first of all, do at the end of this week. Oh, yeah, let me point this out. Let me backtrack just a bit, right? To to yeah, let me backtrack to week 2 for just a moment. Uh, so discussion board 1, right? I really need it by Saturday. Uh, I'm recording this video Friday morning. I really need it by Saturday because it is obviously we don't track attendance in the class because it's asynchronous. But the university says, hey, we have the census date. We need to know who's been attending so that we can make financial determinations and so forth, right? So, um, what I've done is I've designated this discussion board 1, and if you've um, watched my previous video introductory videos, you've heard this. So discussion board 1 is the census date assignment, meaning that I'm gonna record uh, on officially who's been attending based on the submission of this particular assignment. So I really need that to be turned in on time. Uh, because the census date this semester is the 10th, which I believe is Wednesday, but they're asking for pretty strict compliance and pretty timely compliance. So it may well be that they actually cut off the census date recording on the 10th itself, meaning that if you haven't submitted anything on that particular assignment before that, you may get recorded as non-attending. Um, Now, again, to get full credit on your discussion board, and you might say, well, I submitted I created my thread on the discussion board, but I don't see any credit for it. Um, Probably because you didn't respond to somebody else's thread. You need to respond to somebody else's thread. So let me just, to get full credit. So, for example, if I click on discussion boards and I go to discussion board 1, now, you're not going to see anybody else's thread until you post your first thread. So here it gives you the instructions. You're going to post a response. Um, Essentially, you want to answer the discussion boards in paragraph form. A couple people did, put maybe a couple sentences. I suppose that's okay, particularly for the first one, but as we move along, you'll note the nature of what is being asked is pretty in depth. So a couple of sentence answers aren't necessarily appropriate. So most of you are doing really well, as far as you know doing brief paragraphs for your response, which is fine. Okay. And now, if you want to respond to someone else's thread with a couple of sentences, that's okay, right? But your initial thread should be substantive, right? Okay. So you would type in your thread, you create your thread uh, here, click post. That would generate your thread. Um, And then you would be, after that, you'll be able to see, once you actually post something, you'll be able to see everybody else's. Then you go on and you respond to somebody else. And when I go in here, I'm able to see, you know, who's posted what and how much and all of that. And I can give you your 60 points. And again, there's no right or wrong answers necessarily. This is the points, you're earning the points based on your demonstration of effort and your participation essentially in the board. Okay. So that's that. And again, to access the discussion boards, and I know this is confusing and I apologize for it. It has to do with stuff being ported over from a previous version of Blackboard, et cetera, and so on. But anyway, to access the discussions, you actually click the discussions tab up here. Okay. Let's go back to content real quick. Moving on to week 3 now. Okay. So our text for the week is the Ramayana. I heartily recommend that you watch the anime that's there, even if you're just like doing other stuff like making dinner, cleaning your home or whatever you're doing, and you have it on in the background, and you kind of get the gist of it. I recommend that you do that. It was actually shown at the San Antonio Museum of Art a couple months ago, the 4K version of this. This is this version is not 4K, and it's got some of the scenes redacted a little bit, basically what they could get away with keeping it on YouTube. So, but you're gonna get the gist of the narrative. Um, Please also watch my Ramayana recap because it puts a lot of the stuff in context. Okay, and then your reading journal 1 is due. It says revised here because it's a revision of the uh, link itself, right? I had to do. This is just a convoluted story, but I had to really create this website, this Blackboard site, basically 3 times to get it to function, right, and look like it's not totally crazy in Blackboard Ultra. So I just did that. The revise there was my cue. Okay, this is the link that I'm going to keep. Anyway, um, so speaking of, submitting your um, reading journal, your reading journal, okay, and subsequent reading journals and subsequent assignments, right? So historically, I've advocated using Microsoft Word, which I still do if you have the capacity to actually upload the actual file to Blackboard. If you're trying to use share links, particularly if you SharePoint links, particularly if you are using the version of Word issued by the university, for whatever reason, even if you set that to anybody can edit, right, or anybody with the link can edit, for whatever reason, it's not working. Okay, so I have actually dialed back in the last couple of weeks. And what I'm actually recommending you do, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, okay, but I just popped over to. I'm going to stop share real quick, and then I'll share again just to make sure that you all are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, let me reshare. Okay. So this is Google Docs. Most of you are extremely familiar with it. And hopefully, so, and hopefully my face is not covering up the share button. But if you see up here, so this is just like a text, a blank Google Doc that I'm using by way of demonstration. But if you go over to the side where it says share, right, click it, and what'll happen is you have an opportunity to yeah, okay. So when I click it, um where it says um And I could even do this. I can even make everybody an editor, right? But what you want to do is make sure that anybody with the link, right? Anyone with the link, and I would go ahead and just put anyone with the link can edit, okay? But definitely you want anyone with the link, and you want this Earth to be showing here, okay? Because otherwise it's going to show a lock. You want the Earth to be showing here, and then once you get that done, click copy the links. We're going to click copy the link. Done here. Again, I'm gonna stop sharing because I'm gonna go back to Blackboard and I want to make sure that you're seeing Blackboard. Okay, so I'm gonna stop share briefly. You're still seeing my face. Okay, apologize for that. Now we're gonna go over. We are going to share again. All right. So now we're back on Blackboard. Looking at our site for our page for reading journal number 1. If I click view instructions, okay, and I've already gotten a couple of submissions, so clearly, I mean, a lot of you are basically in here. So what you can do, right, is just Control V once you've got that link copied, and there's that link, right, for for um for the for that. And then you can click, and again, I'm using student preview, so it's freaking out. Okay, but if you're doing the share link for Google Doc, you would just click submit. If you are dragging, you can also drag and drop a Word document. You can, yeah, and see you can attach. And I know this is like counterintuitive, right? Because there's not a button that says, "Hey, attach your files here," but you can click your paperclip, and then you can attach your document, and then click submit. Okay. Um, Again, I appreciate your patience with all of this. If you submit a reading journal, or barring that, you can just do your work in Word, right? And then copy and paste your text in the submission box. Okay. Um, and then submit. I appreciate your patience with all of this. If there's a situation where I cannot see your work, I will uh, first of all, I'll get your attention by putting a 0 there, and then I will text, I will put in the comments, I can't see this, please resubmit. If you can see, it says unlimited attempts, so you would just go back to the original submission page and you would submit another version. It's also important to note that it's particularly in the new Blackboard and Ultra, I can only see the latest submission. Okay. All right, so I can only see the latest thing that you submit. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this video talking about the Ramayana because I just actually rewatched my Ramayana recap from 2022. And yeah, it's enough if you actually take the time to, watch the anime, so on, right? It's enough to contextualize it for you. It's about a 30-minute video, give or take. So anyway, I'm just gonna cut this video short. I do heartily recommend spending a little time with the Ramayana, because it is such a uh, formative text for a lot of people, right? But in any case, one question that I did get online this week, that rather through email this week, is that people ask, well, what should I be doing my reading journal on? Well, the answer to that is that you're essentially, um, your reading journal is designed to convey your thought process and so forth, how you're engaging with the text, what you're thinking about the text, right? Within how you're uh, understanding the text and so forth, questions that you may have about the text and so on, right? Within a given time block within the course. So, for example, we're hitting week 3. So really what we're talking about doing the reading journal on is you're talking about the text that you've read and that's listed on the syllabus from, week 1 to week 3. So really you're talking about Gilgamesh, you're talking about Genesis, you're talking about Ramayana, right? Um, and I've already had some, I haven't commented on it yet or put in scores, but I have a nice piece, very honestly written piece on Gilgamesh, um, and also a piece on Genesis, where someone articulates how they're interacting with the text and so forth, and also makes a statement about one's personal faith, which is completely fine, particularly for the reading journal, because the reading journal is your space where you're working out ideas and you're talking about ideas. And I'm not one to to make some kind of argument against someone's personal faith, right? That's not my intention at all. In your literary project, that's a little different. You want that to be literarily focused and not theologically focused per se. But that doesn't mean, for example, that you can't do your literary project on Genesis or on the Gospels, for example. It means that if you're going to do that, you should apply some literary framework. You should look at it as literature, right? It is very definitely real to folks. Those texts are very definitely real and viable to folks who have faith, and I'm not trying to decry that in any way. As the Ramayana and the Bhagavad Gita, for example, and the Quran, right, as we move along through the text, are very real to folks who have faith in those particular texts, right? And then those particular theological traditions that draw upon those texts, right? Okay. But as far as literary project is concerned, you want to approach, if you choose to do your literary project, say on Genesis or on the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran, right? You want to use literary approaches. Okay. All right. So, and again, and I believe that I put this folder a couple of different places in our text, but okay, that's good. Okay, let me look in week 2, maybe. Yeah. So in week 2, in this week's folder, I've got theoretical frameworks, and I think I pointed this out in my last video. This one in particular, this document in particular, this is literary theory 101, right? It's like if you wanted a cliff notes to literary theory or spark notes to literary theory, this is it, right? This I'm sorry, I'm pointing to the screen. You can't see me point to the screen, but it's this Purdue OWL literary theory. It's nice, okay? So if literary theory is completely new to you, I would go here. Again, I'm pointing to the screen. I would go to this Purdue OWL literary theory and delve into that. If you want to ask me questions about it, if you can do so via email. You can we can make an appointment via Zoom. I'm particularly available most of the time. This week is a little bit this coming week's a little bit dicey because we've got events on campus and I've got a lot of commitments. But most of the time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am very much available for Zoom communication, and I will be next week as well, particularly after say 1 o'clock. I've got morning commitments on Tuesday and Thursday on campus, but in the afternoons, say 1 o'clock to 5:30, I'll probably be in my office. So if you want to meet via Zoom to talk about literary theory or something to that effect, uh, sounds like a well spent afternoon to me. So in any case, but again, we've got a few weeks out before the literary project becomes like a prominent part of the course. At this point, really, as far as that goes, if you just are really vibing with a text, you might consider that the literary project is something for you. One last thing, and I'm previewing actually this is not for next week, but I've already got a couple of people going on discussion board too, which is great, right? There's nothing that prevents you from working ahead in the course, but again, to get your points, you need to respond to somebody else's thread, right? So to create your own thread and then respond to it. So the key on most of the discussion boards moving forward, with the exception of, I believe it's like the one that's on literary project ideas, but I've got 4 options listed here, and you're gonna respond to one of them, right? I'm not expecting you to respond to all 4 of the options, or in some cases there might be 3 options. Some cases I don't know if I have 5 options for any of them, but I'm asking you to respond to one of them. So this a very good reading strategy, effective reading strategy for the works in our course, right, is to go through and read these discussion boards, right? Look at these options and figure out, based on these options and when the discussion boards are due and so forth, what you want to actually concentrate your reading on. Because again, it is unrealistic for me to ask you to read and view everything that's in this course. It's a lot, right? I want you to know it's there. I want you to have access to it, right? But go through and read these discussion boards, and based on that, you can kind of guide your reading, right? So you can see in this discussion board 1, I've got a question about the nature of humanity in Enkidu, and what that may, what his transition from quote unquote animal to quote unquote human means about the societal values, for the society that created the text, right? And then I've got a question about Rama and the decisions that he has to make in reference to Dharma, in reference to Dharma, okay. And then and again, I talk about that in my Ramayana recap that's in this week's folder. And then I've got a question about, or discussion possibility about essentially Abraham arguing with Yahweh, right, or El, depending on which strain of the text that actually is. I would have to consult, you know, Art Ehrman or somebody about which strain of the text that is. But yeah, he's essentially arguing with God. He's having a rhetorical debate, right? Using rhetoric right? Using, negotiating, signifying, and so forth, with God, right? And what comes of that, and in essence, that becomes a very that that uh, that scene, or that narrative, right, becomes very important, to the character of Judaism, right? Because part of, even to this day, part of being Jewish, right, is arguing with God, right? It's considered very much divine, very much a divine undertaking, right? To For humans to argue with God. So, and in some Christian traditions too. Um, uh, I don't know, some of you, this is dating me, right? But Robert Duvall, there was this movie called The Apostle with Robert Duvall, and there's this, scene there where, he's basically, up in his, room, talking in a really loud voice and so on, and somebody comes in the, front room, and his mom's there, and she says, Sonny is arguing with God, you know. So, anyway, and then there's it's not really a cop out option, but the option four there is just, if there's something really pressing that you see in one of these, works, that you really want to put out there, and you really want to talk about and spark discussion on, you can do that. Okay. um and people might respond to you, and and you might get a discussion going. I will try my best, uh, to respond to each thread, as I've been doing with, discussion board one. I will try my best to respond to each thread, to at least to the author's initial post. Okay. All right. I have gone on way too long, so I am going to, stop share, and I'm gonna, end this video. All right. Have a great week, everybody, and actually have a great weekend as well. All right. Again, please email me if you have any questions. CMeyer at tamusa.edu. Okay. Thank you.